Welcome to the Broken Graciously podcast, where we challenge the culture of brokenness by exchanging beauty for ashes holistically, with candid conversations, transparency, and practical tips. I'm your host, Tanisha B. Lester, lovingly known as Coach T. I'm a Master Certified Life and Business Coach, Certified Christian Coach, Certified Pastoral Counselor, and published author. I look forward to engaging with you in the comments as well as on IG. Follow me on IG at Tanisha B. Lester with the number 1. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. All right, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in to Broken Graciously. This is season 2, episode number 4. Wow, we're really moving along in this season. So welcome again to Broken Graciously, where we challenge the culture of brokenness, exchanging beauty for ashes holistically with candid conversations, transparency, and practical tips. So today, again, we have another guest coming in. You know, we've been dibbling and dabbling in all things health, having various guests come in. So today we have Gatwiri Mitwi, and she is our guest today. She is going to talk to us about being burnt out. She's going to tell us some things about what she has going on. She's going to talk about her clothing line, because my girl got a whole clothing line out here in these streets, and we want to just come and talk to her. So let me first just read you her bio and tell you what she's about. So Gatwiri Mitwi is the founder and creative director of Jane and Vogue. It's a clothing boutique aiming at bettering women's health through fashion. Now that's a key right there. She is also a healthcare professional with over a decade of combined experience in project management, strategic planning, consulting, operations, and clinical research. Highly valued in managing multiple projects, leading teams, and operating strategically through performance improvement initiatives. Her passion is creating meaningful initiatives that significantly improve healthcare outcomes in various communities. She is determined to use her expertise and personal experience to advocate the value of self-care and total wellness. Welcome, Gatwiri.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was such an introduction. I was like, oh my God, is that me? But
It's all you.
but the first thing, I want to honor you, Tanisha, because you're like such a brilliant mind, and thank you so much for having me. This is something like, I know it's something like you always worked hard for. So I'm looking forward for this program to just continue blessing other people as it's been blessing me. So yes.
I appreciate you. So Gatwiri and I met when I took the course for milestone circles with NASDAQ, and she was actually one of our mentors in my circle group. So that's how we met, and she began to tell us her story and the things that she had went through, because part of the program actually pushes you to make sure you're incorporating self-care throughout your journey in their course, and not just in their course, but holistically, even outside of the course. So she began to tell us our story, and it was important because when she starts to tell you everything that she went through, you'll see why self-care is important. So just give us some background on how you started with your healthcare professional career, and then just walk us right into your story.
Yeah, sure. That's actually a long-winded one, but I'm gonna make it short.
We got time.
So right away, I was born and raised in Kenya, East Africa. And then I came here right after her high school. That was like 19 years ago. So you can, tell my age by that time.
All right,
So
we in the same age group, route.
yeah, millennials. So when I came here, actually one thing about me, I'm always artsy. People don't know I was always artistic. I love art. I used to just be in art competitions. What you see back there, it's actually one of my artifacts where it's like a J-Lo jacket, because I knew I was coming to Los Angeles, California, and that time during PDD and J-Lo season, so everyone was wearing like some like fur coats and leather jackets, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to make sure I don't look like I don't fit in. So I went to the flea market and made sure I got something that it's gonna like make me fit in. But it's so interesting. When I came here, right away, actually, my mom took me to Art Center in Pasadena. We actually went the entire school with the president, and I was about to enroll in that program, and then one thing came to my mind. It's kind of like an epiphany, because one thing I realized, like, wait a minute, I came to the US, I have now all these resources, and one thing I realized, I need to have something that I can be able to give back to my community, meaning going back to Kenya and making a difference, but also what I'm seeing here, because when you come as an immigrant, you have to go through like so many healthcare screenings and so many other things. So for me, it was a flabbergasting moment to see these physicians, these medical assistants, these physical therapists, and so many other professionals in the healthcare. In Kenya, we only had a doctor and a nurse. That's it. That time. So for
Okay.
me, that was like, whoa, how is this possible? And it seems like it's working in their country. So right away, I told my mom, you know what? I'm not good in sciences, but I want to go back in school and start studying sciences. And she was like, oh, I don't think you can make it because, like your sisters, you're more into the artsy. You know how moms are. And they're always trying to like give you like honest, but still like realistic opinion, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I was able to now get into medical assistant and phlebotomy school, and that was when I got there. I worked in St. Jude's as an intern there for just like few months, and then right away I realized like I want to be a doctor. I want to be one of the leaders there in that because for me I was still learning and growing when I'm in the healthcare field. So right away I decided to go back to school, and then eventually I was, accepted in UC San Diego for physiology and neuroscience. I got a scholarship to go there. And then in my fourth year, because I was working with HIV/AIDS research clinic, I realized like, my passion and my commitment in healthcare is more in the administrative and operations. So that's when I realized again I had to pivot. In other words, I kept on pivoting in my world because, again, this is a new world, this is a new environment, a new career that no one in my family knew, or no one in my environment knew. Like, there's different resources and different types of skill set in healthcare. So right away, I knew I really fit in healthcare operations because I love to see the entire ecosystem working rather than just working with one department. As a doctor, you only specialize in one department. For
Right.
me, now, long story short, I ended up, working in a lot of leadership roles where I work with over 37 departments. I used to go, coach physician leaders, nurses, directors, and then improve healthcare outcomes like colorectal cancer screenings and mammograms, creating all those initiatives, especially when ACO, some people know it as Obamacare, came in. I was one of the leaders who actually helped with improving healthcare strategies to make sure people get their screenings right and preventive screening, especially in our community and people of color. So yeah, so since then I realized like, yeah, this is where I belong. But
Right.
uh, that's when I think that's gonna go to your next question. That's when after doing things passionately, I know sometimes we might do things so passionately, and then we tend to forget who we are and ourselves.
Right. And we tend to forget caring for ourselves most importantly because we're in our minds it's just like we're studying in go mode, especially when you have things coming out or things coming up and you're
Yep.
working on those projects. It's easy to forget to eat because I like for me, I can wind up going all day and it's like, oh, it's like 6, 7 o'clock and I haven't eaten yet. And it's like slow down, go stop and find something to eat because even though you naturally the stomach just starts to growl like I'd be like, okay, in a half an hour, but next thing I know, 2, 3 hours have gone by, and we just don't necessarily think about it like that. So yeah, I totally understand your point.
Yeah, yeah. And that goes back, now goes to my next thing in terms of wellness. Like, how did I end up where I have now a fashion business? Like, how, why? And actually, now that was through because of a health scare. Imagine me being like, so passionate in the healthcare. Just imagine this, young girl in her 20s, like making a huge impact in, some of the leading initiatives in the nation. And I was even an executive, committee leader in one of the executive healthcare programs, board groups. And I was just doing a lot. But one thing I didn't know was to read myself, my body. My body, I started having high blood pressures. I started having like, maybe anxiety. Some anxiety also came in. And then like I'll be every time I'll go to the hospital and they'll give me IVs and I go back to work. I realize, okay, yes, I want to just, continue on. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna get better because I was active and I'm still there, but not how I was before. So I was pretty active, and I thought, I am doing everything right, like eating healthy, buying healthy stuff, and doing the right thing. However, it's when you have, first of all, when you have high blood pressure and your body is always stopping, like, for no reason, no known reason. Instead of you continuing on to, I think it was more like people pleasing, like trying to, make other, people feel, yes, Gatwiri, you can do it. And, I think, having the cheerleaders helped me, telling me, yes, you can do it, and giving me promotions and, all the incentives, that was just kept me think I was immortal, like, I was a superhuman. And that's when I realized, like, whoa, my body, it's what actually told me. Right away, it shut down,
Okay.
completely shut down. So I became completely paralyzed. No, yes, he actually started in meetings. I was going to executive meetings, and part of my job was consultation. So I'll go to some leadership meetings in various medical centers, and when I park, I could not walk. I will really struggle walking. And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, what's going on? Like one leg will not walk. So I'll try to find a parking, like, where it's not even prohibited. I mean, where it's actually prohibited. And and when I go to the meeting, I'll see myself having issues even talking, stuttering, and right away, eventually they realize I'm the one who realized I need time off, you know, I need to
Okay.
seek medical help. So that time, they hadn't really figured out what the issue was. Now, fast forward, they eventually realized it was a neurological issue I had, and
Okay.
it's something that if it's triggered by trauma, by too much, um, you know, too much, enforcement about, like, too much enforcing of your health, like like trying to push too much to yourself,
Rest.
that really affects you. So yeah, and I became the last 2 years I became fully paralyzed. I could not walk, I could not do anything, and it was in my early 30s. For me, I was like, whoa, what's up with this, I felt like I let myself down.
So was that like your lower extremities, your upper extremities, or like completely from head to toe?
That's a good question. So it was actually from upper extremities, and it had to do with neurological from my back, like
Okay.
upper back all the way down. So in other words, I was like a stick, just literally lying in bed like straight.
Okay.
And if I
Wow.
move, I have to move. They have to use like something to move me in a certain direction.
Okay.
Really, I could not move at all. Yeah, and it's interesting. One thing I realized, it's not, I cannot blame anyone. That's when I realized it's more self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is where like you have to take responsibility of what what's going on with your life, and really finding ways on how to improve yourself.
Right.
I, in retrospect, I started looking at how I was living, because that time I used to live in LA by myself, and like like I said, I was active, was doing everything and hanging out with friends and doing stuff, trying thinking I have balance, going to Bible studies, you know, but really I didn't have balance. I was just checking off the list. Balance means body, mind, and spirit. Um, my body was okay, my mind was not okay, and my spirit was not in sync. So that's where I think burnout, people never really talk about it, because it's all in one. You can have a perfect body, but if your mind is not there yet and your spirit is not grounded also, you're still gonna crash either way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's that. I mean, if we just look biblically, that's how God created us, right? He created us mind, body, and spirit. So absolutely, when one thing is off, that when that equilibrium is disturbed, you're off all the way. But that's how we live. That's how we move. That's how we function in normal everyday life, because it's just considered to be normal. um and I don't think, here's what I believe. I truly believe that it takes a rock bottom type situation or occurrence for us to realize that something's off. We don't often realize it because we just go about our normal day. Oh, I'll deal with it later. Or, oh, this is minor, when it really isn't minor. It may start as minor, but it comes to be something major. But those are the things that help most often. Sometimes you get people that still don't really get the picture, but most often it takes that big thing to make you sit down, relax, and think. Because at that point, you have no choice but to think, right?
Yeah,
So Gatwiri just mentioned how she was paralyzed. Now, the first thing that came to my mind when you start talking about getting out of the car and not being able to speak correctly and not being able to get that leg to move, my first thought process was stroke. But it was even further than that, because you said it was more neurological issue that occurred. So it even went past the stroke process, where normally just one side of your body is affected in a stroke. It went even further than that. So like you had nothing but time to sit, think, and reflect. And I'm sure, just like you said, at some parts you beat yourself up because it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I see this earlier? Or why shouldn't I have done something before? Or like, what could I have done differently? So I think that's a
wow.
big thing right there. Just being able to sit with yourself. I know for me, I always had a problem before I started going on a process of healing. I had a problem with sitting with myself because sitting with myself was uncomfortable.
Mm.
And we talked about this in the last episode, how just being alone sometimes, especially if you're a people pleaser, or you need that outside affirmation of what you're doing is good and you're making a contribution and you're making a difference. It's hard sometimes to just sit and be by yourself in that particular space. So yeah, I understand. I
Yeah,
totally understand.
my God, you actually nailed onto something that, that was one thing. Now, looking back, I realized like, um, yeah, it was actually, they called it mini strokes. Imagine I was experiencing mini strokes in my meetings, still doing high performing, providing everything I needed to provide, but like to a point where my previous job, they were so kind enough. I actually started working remotely even prior to COVID. So I was working, I would look still fabulous in the meetings, but people don't know, like after the meetings, I will even have sometimes emergency 911 come and pick me up from this office, take me downstairs, and they'll carry me with a gurney, and they'll take 3 hours because I'm like a stick, and they're trying to figure out what's the best way to not, affect her. And
Right.
the reason, like what you just said, it was that that neurological issue. It could not be triggered by trauma, and the trauma was the stroke, and the stroke was the burnout. So you see, it's a domino effect, and also it goes down to drilling to people pleasing. And what really helps me nowadays realize is guarding my heart. I gotta guard my heart,
Yep.
and just saying no for me, it's not. I know nowadays people say, "Oh, no is a sentence." Yes, it is. And saying no for me, I have to say no, and I have to be in tune with my body, mind, and spirit. Every time when I talk to my body, I tell like anyone who comes with any request. It doesn't matter if it's a president or actually, I just got like a call from a leader. Like I actually met a leader last week, and he really wants to work with me. But again, the old Gatwiri will jump into like right away, send an email ASAP, want to like look like she's super desperate. But nowadays I have to realize like I am also that valuable as that person is. And I know I'm coming as like they reach out to me because I'm a professional. So I need to know how to handle my emotions, my well-being, to be present when I'm speaking to him. I don't know when that's going to be. I looked at my schedule. I'm fully booked. So I really cannot send an email or schedule time until I clear my schedule. And that's fine. You don't have to say yes to everyone just because they're of higher authority than you. No, everyone is
Absolutely.
human, and they'll end up respecting you better when you tell them, yes, we can meet. Thank you for sending me the email. This is my schedule. When can we meet? And how do you want us to partner together? That's the type of leadership. You have to show that you're also assertive, not just a yes man. So that's something I'm learning through looking inward. um yeah, a lot of meditation and inward thoughts.
Absolutely. And hey, I tell all my clients, like, no is a complete sentence. It
Yeah.
doesn't need any punctuation. It's the same in English language. Like it's the same across the board, and it will save your life. I know what that people pleasing is like. You feel tired, but somebody calls you and you get up and do it anyway. I know what it's like to have people try to guilt you into doing things because they're used to you doing. But when you start to say no, number one, you're going to get pushback because they're not used to that. And two, it's the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Even if you have to say, hey, let me check my schedule, and you step away from it, it's important, like she was saying, to check in with yourself. Hey, number one, is this something I really need to be doing right now? It may not line up with where you're going in your business or in your life. It may not line up according to your morals and your values, right? So it's important to do that self check to see, hey, is this aligning with what I know? Can I do it right now? Or like, do I need to say, hey, I really don't have time this month, but I need to do it next month. And that means, okay, yes, we have 4 weeks in a month. I may have that 1 week where I'm not doing anything, but that week I really need to rest. So incorporate that 1 week into, yeah, I need to rest this month, and I'll get back with you next month. Like, how can we work it for next month in a time that's mutually beneficial and coercive to each of our schedules? And I think that's important for any business person, entrepreneur, professional. Like, that's important across the board. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. That's real key. So tell me, in this moment, um, now that you've learned to reflect, now that you've learned to prioritize yourself, in any business transaction or interaction that you're making, how are you health wise and how do you manage it going forward with your self-care?
That's the question I was waiting for the entire time. For me, actually, how I've been able to come out of that dark moment was, first of all, I always recommend therapy. Therapy really helped me because that time was time of grief. When you have, when you're very high functioning and you're walking and doing, you're flexible, you have all the mobility skill, all of a sudden you can walk. Anyone who experiences trauma right away go through therapy because they'll help you understand how to grieve. That's one thing I used. And then secondly, after that, like it's more like drinking a lot of water.
Yeah.
I have to have my sleep like 7 to 8 hours. That's one thing I have to do every day. And sleep for me, it's something consistent. It gotta help me with my renewal of my mind, body, and spirit. And then another thing I do, it's all the vitamins. When people say take your vitamins, yes, I'm a sucker of vitamins. I take I take sea moss, I take turmeric, I take right now I'm drinking ginger tea. I drink a lot of I take magnesium and all those vitamins. It's so interesting, and that's one thing I don't know how come our community we haven't been talking about that until Instagram became a thing. I think after COVID, that's when we started talking about it, because I'm like, whoa, it's so funny. He actually declined the amount of medication I used to have because
Okay.
obviously you can imagine someone who's experiencing all this. I cannot work. I'm having a caregiver to come and take care of me. And that was my trajectory. Like I'll have a caregiver for the rest of my life because it's a very rare condition. But I was like, no, that's not me. God is not done with me yet. So I knew I have to help myself. So imagine coming from all those bags of medication to only taking vitamins. And
You
like,
are able to come off of the high blood pressure medicine and all of that
oh,
as well?
like some medications that you'll never think of, like the ones that they think that it can be, addictive. I told my doctors, yes, let's try to figure out how we can be able to taper these ones off. And I said, I'm ready for this. And I was able to use my own way, my own self efficacy, meaning eating well, drinking well, doing a lot of meditation. I live close to a lake, so I usually go there and just meditate, or I'll go outside and look at birds, mountain. I know it just seems like kind of like a hippie style, but like really it helps. Coming from living from a city of LA and other cities, and then to a suburb where I'm just relaxing and I'm all internal. I'm like, wow, I'm going
That,
back
that,
to
that
nature.
makes sense though, right? Because depending on where you live in Kenya, you were surrounded by nature.
There you
So
go.
that's innately who you are. So to go from that to being in the city is traumatic in itself. And it was outside of who you innately are. So that makes total sense that nature now living in a more suburban area speaks to you.
It's so funny you say that because in Kenya, I was actually raised in Nairobi and it's a city. So it's more like
Okay.
suburbs, right? So it's more, yeah, this is actually, I even talked to one of my family members. They said, this actually reminds me of my home because we now have a garden. We usually eat a lot of, garden food, like, vegetables and, herbs we eat from the garden. But honestly, this reminds me of Kenya. And honestly, I think having that origin, it helps me. But one thing also in Kenya, I used to love every time when we have time off, like break in school, like holidays, people like to go for vacation. For me, my vacation was take me to grandma's house. I want to go to where there's lakes, there's nature, and or safari where there's animals. That's just me. That was my healing element. And I didn't know, even my therapist at that time, they told me, Gatwiri, it looks like you already had your healing elements.
Huh?
You like your coping mechanism. You knew how to cope with yourself in any precarious state. And
Huh?
actually, you'll realize why I even created, like, the fashion business, because that also aligns with this entire story. Yeah. So usually coming from, a place where I'm so used to nature, organic food,
Yeah.
now eating everything. Nowadays, I realize, oh, yes, I cannot eat everything anymore. I need to go back to my roots again.
Right.
I'm not designed to eat everything again.
Right. I get that nature thing. I didn't grow up in the city. I
Mm,
grew up where we live pretty much was like country because I always called my grandparents on both sides. Their homes were like base for me. And it was like country living, like nothing but trees. Like my paternal grandmother's house where she still lives to this day, across the street was a pig farm. Next door was, just like massive land. My grandfather had a garden in the backyard, a garden down the street, like, and then on my maternal side, we lived in the country, like up at the top of our street was another house, but surrounding us was nothing but woods and a garden. So like that's what I was used to. So even now when I need to hear more clearly even from God or just decompress, I need to be in nature,
yeah,
and that's where he speaks to me the most and I get the most revelations, and that's where I feel the best. Now I don't go and do it or even go to the park as much as I should, cuz like right just in this particular space is a lot more work that I need to do, so I'm constantly in the house. But I get, knowing where you come from, that's what speaks to you, but we just subconsciously just don't think about it. So tell me, let's get into how the fashion and the self-care came in, because this part is the most interesting to me, how you created an entire clothing line or fashion line that speaks to self-care.
there you go. And it's so funny. So again, one thing I always say, fashion speaks. My mantra and also our mantra in the business is fashion speaks, fashion heals. Because it's so funny, like, I said, most of the time I used to work remotely. So you'll see me this beautiful, like, all, pampered, but you don't know what I'm going through behind. And that shows the power of fashion, because someone can still, continue being their best self while still thriving. Um, because one thing really helped me was to realize, okay, yes, coming from like all those stages of grief, I realized, like, yes, this is a chronic condition. It might be a lifetime or not. However, this is my present current condition, right? And I need to nurture it. I need to understand how to work with it. And I so let me go back to my inner childhood again, going back to my inner childhood. What did I used to do when I was not, in a happy place, or I don't have access to nature to get in tune with God and nature? Because also I speak to God through, nature. I'm a person of faith as well. So right away, it was like, being in the city, I'll go and buy magazines. Like, I'll go to, fashion, like, like the street vendors in Kenya. There were so many panhandlers. So I'll go and buy, magazines out there, and then come back and look at, from Cosmopolitan, from Vogue magazine, from Essence. And I'll look at all, it was my escape. I'll look at all the designs and then use all my savings and go to flea market and buy anything that kind of looks or resembles that type of design or material. I come and recreate the same style I've seen on Vogue magazine or Cosmopolitan or somewhere, and then I start selling to my friends and other people. Or I just dress up and people are like, "Wow!" And help them saying wow, I realized that's my love language, like words of affirmation. So nowadays I'm starting to understand my love language is words of affirmation, not giving me gifts or anything. So just right away when someone says wow, Jane, or like it makes someone happy, acts of service actually is my number one. me just, making a different, like, wow, I don't know, the way you created that jeans, like, that distressed jeans, it just made me fabulous. All the guys were checking me out. That's the reaction I used to get. And people didn't know that was my copy mechanism, because I was very shy. I was very, sometimes I didn't know, maybe because they say this neurological condition, it's more congenital. So probably it was some signs of that, but I didn't know. So, but that was just my copy, and I used to live my best life still. So that's how I created Jane in Vogue. So Jane actually is a name. I'm named after my grandma. In my culture, their second daughter is named after my mother's, your mother, your maternal side. So my mom's mother, her name is Jane, because being baptized, during colonialism, when you're baptized, you have to have an English name. So she's named Jane, and she's very humble, very wise. She's the person who I used to go to her, farm, where I'll see the animals and the lake, and I'm like, wow, it just grounds me every time. And
Okay.
they'll cook like just a boiled chicken, nothing else, just salt and boiled chicken. And I'll feel like, whoa, this is way better than what we eat out there, in Nairobi.
Right.
And then Vogue is style. And also it just reminds me of that, how I used to cope with, such precarious state. And that's when I realized truly fashion speaks, fashion heals, because that I actually created this business through healing process. The last 2 years, I knew I needed to pivot. I needed to now plan ahead, because I can't, what if I cannot work full time anymore, be present? I cannot be always asking time off, because as much as my company loved me and I was really doing well, that's still business. It's not fair for anyone, right? So I had to use my industrial self, and just be judicious enough and create something that will be sustainable and still make a difference in women's life. Now, this has opened a platform to show women, like, yes, you can be vulnerable and still live. Because me sharing my story, and most of the time, even when we're going to sell our clothes, we usually have like those words of affirmation cards saying you love your piece. It's so funny. People love it. They're like, you don't know how much that meant to me. And that's one thing we never stop to acknowledge. Just tell someone you're valued, you're loved, you're
Yeah.
peace, you're needed,
Yeah.
we love you, right? So yeah, so that's how Jane and Vogue was. That was the inception of Jane and Vogue, actually.
That's awesome. So she mentioned about the love languages. So let me just give you a clue on that. If you're not familiar with the love languages, so there are five love languages, and they are words of affirmation, which she just said was hers, acts of service, which is also her number one. There's physical touch, quality time, and gifts. Those are the five love languages, and it's actually a book that you can read. It's by Gary Chapman. You can also take the love languages test. So, what the love languages do is it actually speaks to how you, as an individual, receives love the best or the most. So, when you're not receiving in that particular manner, so like Gatwiri's love tank is filled up when you're affirming her in words, or you're doing acts of service for her. So, helping her create her designs, or helping her in her business, right? Those would be acts of service that helps to fill her love tank. So that's what she was mentioning. I just wanted to give some clarity on that for someone who's not familiar with what the love languages are. Um, so I get
Yeah,
that. So yeah, we all like to feel valued. We all like to feel pretty. We all like to feel just good about ourselves. So the fact that you were able to create something that affirms a woman, whether you've met her or not, is awesome. So like, what is your process even now? And most importantly, where are your clothes?
so yeah, okay, so I'll start with the last question to now, going back to, now our main topic. So yeah, my clothes right now we're selling in Walmart. Walmart where
Oh, stop.
yeah,
Did you just skip over that like that wasn't important? No.
I always get that. It's so interesting. But like for me, yeah, like it just happened right away because I opened my business, 2 years ago, but it was dormant. And then I started being like, more interactive when I resigned my job in last February. So I got the Walmart contract 3 months after I started being more active and more proactive with my business. And right away, they reached out to me and they signed me up. So I sell, we have over 30,000 products that we sell actually in the Walmart marketplace. And we'll be pushing some of them actually in their fulfillment center, and you'll be seeing it in their, product. But yeah, if you go to Walmart, Jane and Vogue, you'll see our comfort fits, everything fabulous and really affordable. Most of items we made it intentionally to be below $50 because we want to make sure every woman can look fabulous and still like be conscious of budget
Budget
and
friendly.
also yeah, just think about being budget friendly as well. Like we don't want anyone to miss out on just feeling fabulous or they belong because they cannot afford. That's
Right.
one thing I always go with my mantra. I want everyone to find their style with whatever budget they have. So even if you go to my website, there's actually shop by budget. So there's, between 0 to 50, 50 to 50 to $100, and then $100 and above. That way
Okay.
it's fitting for all types of women and any type of economy. If you want to splurge yourself, yes, go for the $100 or $200 fee. Yes, we have those too. And you can even do custom. We do a lot of custom for weddings and so many other things. However, I still want everyone to know that clothes is just a way for you to know to feel good and to look good, because when you feel good you look good, and when you look good you do good. But one thing also people don't know, as a patient, because I was hospitalized so long, like one of the best things that really helped, and even therapy, they will tell you like, were you able to groom yourself, were you able to take care of yourself? When you take care of yourself, there's that vibrant inside glow. It just starts radiating outside. So the beauty is inside out. Just know no clothing is defining who you are. You define the clothes, whatever you wear. And that's one thing I'm hoping I can continue, like, opening this forum to show people that it's not a matter of the clothes. It's what you like, how you're using the clothes to express truly who you are, not to create a controversy or any, political stance, or, what who you truly are innately. Because I think, Tanisha, one of the main common element that we've been talking, the common denominator is going back to your inner childhood. If people can find their inner childhood, who they truly are, they'll be able to live their truest self and find what really best fits their life. It might not look nice to other people, and that's okay. Not everyone is supposed to be in your life, but there's people who are meant to be in your life. And when you start having that inner glow, let me tell you, you'll attract the right people in your life. Nowadays,
Absolutely.
I attract the right people in my life, and I'm like, whoa, what was I
Absolutely.
thinking back in the day? Yeah.
So what you just said literally is what I do, right? So as a coach, I speak to the trauma that women have gone through, right? I literally take you on a journey of discovering the root causes
Yes.
of trauma from childhood, and like I think the biggest thing I always have to convey is that trauma is not always sexual or physical abuse, right? Trauma for Gatwiri was a serious medical emergency that changed the trajectory of her life. trauma for someone else could be a divorce. It could be coming to the knowledge that you were adopted. It could be a tropical storm, right? Trauma runs the gamut and it's on a spectrum. But I speak to that trauma so that when you can get to the root cause of your trauma, knowing where it came from, knowing how it happened, and when you start to see the triggers, teaching you how to reframe your triggers with a different mindset, that that's my genius right there. That's my genius right there, where I can help you see it, recognize it, and operate differently, because not knowing it is what creates these cycles of self defeat, these cycles of low self esteem, these cycles of low self confidence. I was there. I experienced it firsthand, and I know what it took for me to come out of it. And the first step is always changing your mindset. When you change your mindset, then you can change all the rest of the things. But it's
Amen.
not until you do that that any of those things will change. And you can, what came to my mind most when you said it's not about the clothes, right? A lot of times we'll mask with clothes, we'll mask with jewelry, we'll mask with the latest bags, the Fendi bags, the Hermes, the Louboutins, right? And all the makeup. We utilize those things to cover up what's really going on with us internally. Yes, you look great from the outside, but you are
You
on
break
the
it.
inside.
Yeah. And that was really what was happening. Let me tell you. A lot of people used to say, "Oh, wow, man, you used to look hot, whatever." Like, because that time I was like, I looked very physically, like, yeah. I was the it girl, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that definition of like, the society mainstream it girl, like, in LA, like, I'll go somewhere. However, every day I'll go home, I'll just be crying in my own space. I lived in the best areas. I drove the best cars. I lived the best life, right? But I was not in my happy state. And that's when I realized clothes are they're not, like you said, it's just masking. It's just masking who you are. But for me, I was like, how can I use now clothes to send a message to people? Because I need them to realize they're beautiful inside out. And a lot of people always ask me like, "Man, Gatwiri, I don't think you're like into Walmart clothes." I'm like, for me, what is Walmart clothes? I want everyone, whatever, like you say Fendi, Gucci. I have like the type of access like this fabric. You can find it in this type of clothes in Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's. But why can't we find it in Walmart? I want to see. I remember like back in the day when right from Kenya, my mom will work 2 or 3 jobs to afford clothes, just in Walmart, and maybe they're not the most trendiest, they're not the Nike, they're not the Jordans. However, that's what she could afford. How come we cannot make people, who cannot afford certain amount of, like, fabric or long lasting fabrics? Because I always believe like, yes, it does not need to be expensive, but it needs to be long lasting and
Right.
durable.
It's not the
Right?
name, it's the quality.
It's the quality. So why can we bring that quality in Walmart? And that's my goal. I want people like that child, that young girl like me, instead of going to, flea market, maybe they can see, wow, I can afford this Jane in Vogue and it's very high quality here for $20, mom. And her mom will be so proud. Like, let me give you an example. It really touched my heart. Um, there was this shoe, like it was like a nice no boots actually. It was like a booties, like some booties, like this woman really, a customer really wanted to buy for a child. She kept on sending us an email saying, "Oh my God, I cannot believe your product is out of stock from Walmart. Like I cannot believe it's out of stock. You really broke my heart because that was my supposed to be my child's Christmas gift." And I really had to go to my suppliers. I'm like, please, can we find a way to give them? The problem was it was out of stock. And for me, right away, I knew like that's an issue right there. I need to figure out a way to make sure there's always available inventory for everyone. Because during Christmas, I know what that woman was saying when she was telling me, like, you don't know how much you hurt my feelings and my daughter. Because I knew, like, I was looking at those booties. I was like, yeah, that one obviously you'll find it in Zara, and it will be, or like another place which will be way, way, 3 times or 4 times
Expensive.
higher than
Right.
what we have here. So it really, it's a constant improvement for me and my team, because when we see that right away, I say, yes, this is the customers I was trying to understand. And this is who I want to work with, because I want them to see one day that they have access to such quality items, affordable items for their daughters. And that way their daughters do not feel exempt, especially in school, from bullying, from other things. They'll feel needed and wanted, and like they'll fit in, because again, fashion speaks, fashion heals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we can continue this conversation, but I don't want to wear you out physically. Um, I'm absolutely have to be mindful of that you're still going through that process. So again, her clothing is in Walmart Marketplace online.
Yes.
Go get it. I'm definitely gonna go on there because it's important. Our clothing, our makeup, all of those things should enhance our beauty. It should not define our beauty, like she said. And I think that's important. I think again, it's like important for us to be mindful of self-care, be mindful of any issues that come up health wise for us to take them seriously the first time they present themselves. So give us your final thoughts and we'll close this out. Feel free to come back anytime and we can continue this conversation. But again, I want to be mindful of your health period because I see some physical signs appearing and I want to make sure I'm being cognizant and respectful of that.
Thank you, and I honor that actually, because yes, when I start, prospering, that shows, a lot of people don't know. That's one of the signs that tells me I need to, get up and walk. And nowadays, I know that I never used to,
Pay attention. So
so nowadays I pay attention to everything, and my leg already tells me, yeah, girl, we need to walk. Yeah. So, but anyway, I want to let people know that there's always when you pivot, like, there's nothing wrong with stopping and taking a break with your life. My Walmart story and all this, there's so many things actually coming my way. I'm gonna be working with healthcare leaders, where we'll be having such, forums where to, speak about wellness, and it's still tying with fashion as well. But like, the main thing is to show people that you can stop and not plan. Just have faith that God is actually gonna, or your a higher being, whoever you believe in, He's gonna take you to that place where you need to be when you're in your right self, body, mind, and spirit. Don't waste your time thinking about what if I need to pay my bills, I need to do it. Just stop. When you need to stop, you rather stop for 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, take that sabbatical and take care of your life than us not having you in this life. Everyone is needed in this life, and please, I am a testimony to show that you can be able to get back on your feet when you're ready. But you have to give yourself grace. Yeah.
absolutely. So her final message is God will provide. To sum it all up, God will provide. Um, you take care of your health and he'll do the rest. So thank you, Gatwiri, for spending this time with me and I enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate you taking your time to come in and speak to us and speak on this podcast. So Thank you all for tuning in to episode 4 of season 2, where we talked about more health. We talked about burnout. We talked about self care. We talked about fashion and self care and how you can utilize that to enhance yourself and not the nod to self care for Gatwiri in that respect. Yeah, we will see you all on the next episode on next week. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Breaking Graciously podcast. Stay tuned for weekly episodes. Follow me on IG at Tanisha B. Lester and the number 1. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Blessings.